And we're live. We have 15 minutes until the actual start of the study group. So if you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward 15 minutes. If you have somehow acquired control of space and time and you're watching this live, you can also fast forward 15 minutes. Where are the lights? Lights, turn them all on. Click next, click apply. And look at that. Look at that. It's like magic. All right, we're already recording. So remember that part of it. Oh, let's test audio. Audio check. Test 2, 3. Look at that. Okay, it's like magic. Let's get on the mic. All right, we're already recording. So remember that. That's not bad. That's not awful. It's not horrible. All right, I'll take it. What else is going on? We've got Socrative. People already answering questions. We got chat. That's ready to go. Presentation would be good. Let's check cameras, shall we? Camera 1. Am I a little low? What's happening there? Am I just not at the camera? Am I slacking? That's a little better. Actually sit up and pull my chair up. Oh, look, there's a little bit of this. See that? That's not good. Probably can't even see that. Boop. There you go. That's my crew here. Camera 2. Let's change something here. Let's change this right chair. Camera 3. Hi, I'm in a box. I'm the man in the box. Man in the box. Camera 4, which happens to be the presentation itself. Let's see if it actually slides to the next slide. It does. Just like that. Good. See, I haven't done one of these in 2 weeks. Had 2 weeks off. One of those rare 2-week where we've got Wednesdays, 5 Wednesdays in a month. And I do one of these every Wednesday for 3 weeks. And then usually there's one extra week. And then I'm back to doing it again. Well, this time there was 2 extra weeks. So it's like I've never done this ever. Oh, see, I don't even have my iPad set up. None of this is running. Stuff's not going. How does this work? How does this stuff work? Let's see, we need Keynote. There it is. Go Keynote. Go Keynote. Go Keynote. And we got a green light. Yes. Very nice. See, remote is working. Let's get a lozenge. It's actually a Thayer's Slippery Elm Lozenge. Natural cherry flavor. Don't have to register for Socrative. Just go to Socrative.com. Click on the student login and go to the Professor Messer room. All one word, Professor Messer. Professor Messer. And I need to get caught up with my West Wing Weekly podcast. Clearly, they've already got episode 3 up, and I've only gotten through 1. This will quickly get away from me. I can feel it. You do not have to register to join the study group. You need only go to the link that I have not put into the chat room yet. Blah, blah, blah. That one and this one. For those of you watching on the live stream, there is a live event chat room on my website that I have named Live Event Chat. Really? What a good question. We're already getting good questions. Where could we possibly go to see this? It's really a great question. Okay. So, how you been? What's going on? I feel like I'm too prepared. Like things are the stream's already working, the recording's already going. I'm really just waiting for the top of the hour, which by the way is in about 9 minutes. 9 minutes. 9 minutes. There is for those of you that have watched this stream, it streams at 720p because the TriCaster that I use, the software inside of it is configured to stream at 720p. It does not stream at 1080p, even though I have the means, the bandwidth to be able to stream at 1080p. So I'm looking at getting a device, a separate unit. I could use a separate computer, but I'd rather have a custom built device, very small device that's designed to stream to these different services. But I can't buy it yet because the NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters Trade Show, is not this week, not next week, but the week after. What is that? 16th? Monday the 16th? But it's not next Monday, it's the Monday after. So it's a couple weeks. Two and a half weeks. And I don't want to buy anything because that's when they announce all the new stuff. So of course, if I'm going to buy something, immediately they would probably announce, oh, there's a new one out, released today. So I don't want to do that. It's sort of like waiting for that next Apple device to finally show up. I don't want to be the guy that buys, the Mac Pro. What a good question. How old am I? How freaking old are you, mister? It's a mystery for the ages, really. I'm very old. I remember back before we had Twitter. Pretty old fellow. Pretty old guy. You could probably tell by the old references. I try to make some very old, esoteric references that only old people will get. I was yesterday in my local Panera Bread picking up some bagels for the Mrs. Professor Messer. Had some extra minutes. And I was wearing my Star Trek shirt, as I am apt to do. And the person taking my order didn't make a mention of the Star Trek shirt. For some reason, an old guy wearing a Star Trek shirt, for some reason, is of note. I don't know why people feel a need to mention that. But there was an older kindred spirit behind the counter as well who made reference to the Prime Directive. And apparently the person taking my order was not a Trekker, as is the more politically correct term. And she was a little put out that she was not an old person like us. And I wasn't quite sure how to take that. I did tell her, you should probably be happy you're not an old person like me. You should go with that. You should probably work that one. That's not something you really want to dwell on. I'd say quickly, but we've got 5 minutes and 10 seconds. And then I will make you lose your mind. Do I have all the right stuff turned on? I think I do. Don't need that on. That needs to be off. What else? What else should be turned off? That's about it. Not sure why that was on. I have a oh, there's the study group announcement. There just went out 5 minutes before. I have a channel on my mixer. Can't see it because it's been the way. Can you see it if I do this? It's a channel on my mixer from my laptop, but my laptop isn't plugged in. Normally it's turned off, and it was turned on for some reason. Now my chair's stuck. It was turned on for some reason, and don't know why it was. So that's the things that I think about prior to a study group. Well, I'm sorry you were only able to pick one. Actually, I think I clicked over and updated the pop quiz today, so you can pick two. Or at least you should be able to now. I think I did that about 30 minutes ago. But in your mind, you can pick two, can't you? It's a pain, though. You pick the one and then takes you to the bottom. Like, that's not what I wanted. But you should be able to now. I think you should be able to. I hope it supports two options. Let's see if it does. Let's go to my website now that I've updated it. And which one is it? It's the Hate It When the Hammer Comes Down. So let's go to that one. Can't do it. Oh, it's too bad. That's a shame. So do this and do yeah, it won't work, will it? That's too bad. Maybe there will be an update in the future. I don't write this code, people. It's not me. I'm not the guy who does it. So I do my best. But if you picked one of them that wasn't right, it would tell you that. You just would not be able to pick the second one. Oh, I need to change the website so it points people here. No wonder people are asking. Where's the link? I can't see it. Let's change that so that let's go to the promo bar on the Professor Messer website. Let's go to my free Live A Plus study group is right now. Click here to join us. And then it's /live. Reset the cookie. Save the changes. And let's also empty all the caches. Just so we're all cache free. Credit only. That should do it. Let's try going to the professormesser.com and see what happens. My free Live A Plus study group. Click here. Join us. It works. Yay. Oh, boy. It's weird that wouldn't allow me to pick two. I think I chose two. Let's go look at it real quick. Let's hold the entire study group up while I look at the pop quiz. And that's an answer, and that's an answer. Well, that's a shame. That's a crying shame. I will open a ticket. Can I change it? Can I change how it does this? Display random questions? No. Random order? No. Is this new? I will send a note right away. Well, not right away because I got this thing going on. But shortly, I've sent a couple of notes to the person who wrote the pop quiz regarding a number of different things. My camera's off just a bit. It needs to be. Now's a bad time to worry about the camera. Got to tell you. That'll do. It'll do, pig. Okay. Let's do study group in 10. Shall we? I think it'd be delightful. Here we go, everyone. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the April 2016 Professor Messer A+ study group. This is the monthly study group where I ask you questions and you give me answers. Then we figure out if any of these are correct. I guess we could also figure out if my questions were correct too. Sometimes they don't really work out as well as I would expect. Maybe this will be one of those times. And I will, of course, in a moment tell you all about how to participate live on your side so that you can interactively answer the questions along with everyone else who is watching, and we can see how we do. Be interesting. This is quite a list of things we have ready for you today. I will be opening up the phone lines at the end of the first hour, so you might even want to be ready for that. Right now, you'll find that if you call in, the phone lines aren't open yet. You can leave a voicemail. If you're watching this on a replay, you can even leave a voicemail with a question, but you won't be able to participate quite yet. Of course, you can always watch what we're doing on the replays of these study groups and anything else I'm doing on YouTube at ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube. You can also follow me for the daily pop quiz on ProfessorMesser.com/Twitter. And don't forget about your voucher discounts available on the Professor Messer website. Thanks to our folks at GTS Learning at ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. This is also something, if you're watching this either live or on the replay, that you can earn continuing education units. Now, if you've sent me the request for continuing education units in the last week, I haven't gotten back to you yet, but do not worry, I will be getting back to you today if you're watching this live, just so you know that. And I'll tell you sometime within this first hour how to receive continuing education units. Part of receiving the units is understanding how to request the units. So I'm not going to tell you how to do it yet. You have to watch this to be able to do that piece. So be sure that you are up to date and aware of what's going on with those things as well. The continuing education units can be very helpful if you're planning to renew your certification. So something to consider. Most of what we're going to focus on today, and really the study groups going forward, are focusing on the 900 series exams, although a number of the questions will apply also to the 800 series exams as well. But if you are looking for more 800 series and pure 800 series study questions, you can always go back and watch the replays of the 800 series course study groups and go back and look at that as well. It's kind of nice to be able to watch all the replays on the Professor Messer website. As we're aware, the 900 series exams were released in December 15 of 2015, and the 801 and the 802, and this is important, will retire on June the 30th of 2016. So if you're watching this live, it's April the 6th of 2016, April, May, June. Wow, this is happening relatively quickly. This is coming up pretty quick. How did that happen? Do not worry, though. If you're already studying for your 801 and 802 and you think you can get it done by June 30th, you might want to continue down that road. However, if you think that maybe that's a little bit tight, you don't want to be pressed for time, you might want to consider shifting your efforts over to the 900 series. Now, if you've already taken the 801 and passed it, or you've already taken the 802 and passed it, you're kind of locked in at this point. You must finish that second exam before June the 30th of 2016. It doesn't really matter if you take the old or the new version of these. You get exactly the same certification. So don't worry that you're not getting the right cert depending on which exam you're taking. The certifications look exactly the same. It's exactly the same cert. So don't worry about that piece. This is one also that a lot of people think that now that the 900 series is out and I'm A+ certified, I have to now take the 900 series, but you don't. There's a renewal process for the CompTIA A+ certification, and it's on the CompTIA website. They explain all of the details about it. So you don't have to take the exams again, ever, if you don't want to, which is kind of nice. So don't worry about that piece. You may also be aware that on the website, you can watch all of my 800 and 900 series A+ certification videos for absolutely free. I have 800 series videos that you can take with you as well. You can purchase them and take them offline. I also have 900 series videos you can do this with as well. You might even want to look into those and be able to have these videos and this content available wherever you might be. So if you're not someone who has a good internet connection, or you'd like to have access to this information while you're on a plane or train, this might be an option for you. Today, though, we are going to talk about the questions and the answers. So how do you participate? And this is how it works. It's a service called Socrative.com. So make sure you go to Socrative.com and log in with a student login, and you'll be able to use the room name Professor Messer. Make sure you spell it right, or you'll be the only one in the room. Professormesser. Make sure you spell it exactly the way it is on the screen. There's also an app that you can download from the app from Google Play, the Apple App Store, the Windows Store. There is a plugin or an extension for Chrome. And if you download the Socrative Student app, you can also use that. So you might watch it on one screen and you might participate on the other. It's completely up to you, the way that it works. And the way that it works, once you are in there, you will see a question like this. And it says, how long have you been studying for your A+ certification? And you can answer this question by going to Socrative.com, clicking that student login button, and there's the room name, Professor Messer, Professormesser. I can see a number of you are logging into it right now because I can see you answering the questions live on my side. So you can see that how long have you been studying for your A+ certification? And you can see 35% so far have said less than 3 months. 28% have said, I've already got my A+ cert. You must be here for the continuing education units and the amazing amount of entertainment. They're more than 9 months. These are my people. 21%. Takes me a long time to study for a certification exam. And some of you, looks like the same thing. And of course, we got other percentages in here as well. So as we go through these questions today, you can stay right on the same screen. You don't have to touch anything. The new questions will pop up automatically. You're in the room now. You've done all the hard part. All you have to do is stick in that room and you'll see these go by. Now, if you're watching this on the replay, unfortunately, you're not able to participate live. The only way you can really use Socrative is if you're watching the live stream. So that if you go on the replay and you're sitting in the room and nothing is happening, that's why, because you missed it. So you'll have to join us next time. You can always go to professormesser.com/calendar and you can find out when the next study group might be. Well, let's do some real questions then. Let's jump into this now and do some actual CompTIA A+ questions. If you recall, whenever we start looking at the A+ exam, there's, of course, the 801, 802, there's the 901, 902 exams. And as I said, I'm going to try to focus on the 900 series exam today, although a number of these questions will apply to both. So some will not. But that's the idea. Since there's so little time left to get the 800, I thought transitioning over to the 900 would just make sense to be able to do that. So let's start with a power question. Here's my power question. Which of these are true about surge suppressor specifications? Could I make it more difficult to say? Which of these are true about surge suppressor specifications? In Spain falls mainly on the plane. Maybe you know what the answers are. You can see them pop up on your screen. The options available to you are that higher amp ratings are better, that higher let-through ratings are better, that lower dB level filter values are better, and lower wattage rating is better. I told you there'd be something there that I wouldn't spell right. So there's the question about what is true about surge suppressor specifications. If you think you know the answer from one of these, you can go to Socrative.com to the student login. No answering in the chat room. That's one thing to be able to do. So make sure you do that, and then you'll be able to answer this in the Professor Messer room. It's one of those that we have to know a lot about the surge suppressor specifications and how they work, but we certainly need to get into more details when we're purchasing one of these about making sure we get one that makes sense for what we're trying to do. So if you think you know the answer, go to Socrative.com. A number of you are already answering. You're doing a fine job. A number of you are Googling. Now, how do I know this? Because I see everything. So stop Googling. Pretend that you're sitting down for the exam, and that is now something you just have no idea what the answer might be. Take a guess. This will be your opportunity to see just how good your guessing skills might be. And those are important skills to use for the exam, absolutely. Now, while we're also doing this, I need to turn on the air conditioning in the studio because the lights are on. Here we go. That's working now a little bit better. Let's go to the answers and see how we did with this. So which of these are true about surge suppressor specifications? Well, 52%, like half of you or so, said higher amp ratings are better. And then it's almost really a tie for second. Higher let-through ratings, lower dB levels, and lower wattage ratings. Got one of those. So you've got kind of both options here to be able to work through. So the real question, sure, is being able to make sure that you're able to get in and work through these things. I think that's one of the challenges I have when working through these questions where I'm not quite certain what the answer is. You want to go through this and see if you happen to know. So let's see if we happen to know. Let's talk about surge suppressors for a moment. Surge suppressors, of course, are going to be used for going through this process of cleaning up the power that's coming through, because the power is not something that is one constant voltage as it's coming through. There are storms, there's changes to the power grid. Sometimes these spikes are diverted to ground. Sometimes these spikes are going to get through them. The noise filters that are in our surge suppressors are going to be able to remove this line noise. A higher dB filter is better. As you recall, one of the answers on this question was that lower dB values were better. That's obviously not correct. A higher dB is going to be a better filter for you. Other specifications for the surge suppressor are things like joule ratings. This is how much of a surge this particular surge suppressor is going to absorb. And the higher the number, the better the absorption rate. You also want higher amp ratings are going to be better. That is how much this particular surge suppressor is going to be able to handle amperage-wise. Usually, the more power that's being used by your devices, the more amperage that is going through your surge suppressor. So that's another thing to consider as it's going through these pieces. You want to, of course, also be aware there is a standard for these what they call let-through ratings. This is how much of the power will be let through if there's a surge. Obviously, the lower let-through rating is going to be the better number. So if we look at this and go back to looking at the details, we can even see this. And we can see that higher amp ratings are indeed better. Higher let-through ratings are better. We know that's not through. We don't want to let through more of a surge. We want a lower let-through rating. Lower dB levels, we know higher dB levels, a higher level amount of filtering is always going to be better. And lower wattage rating is better. No, a higher wattage rating would be better. So in this particular case, if you chose A, higher amp ratings are better, 52% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done with that. And keep in mind, of course, that even if you got it wrong, there is one of these challenges that you have. Now you've learned something about surge suppressors, and you can look at these terms now and understand what a let-through rating might be referring to, or a filter for the dB might be referring to. So in this case, those 52% of you folks knew what it was. Higher amp ratings are indeed better. A would be the correct answer. Let's do another one, shall we? I think we've got another one lined up for you, and here it is. Which of these would be the best troubleshooting tool to diagnose system startup problems? I've got a number of tools available in the list. I'm not giving you a fill in the blank, thankfully. Being able to do this, the possible answers are a power supply tester, a multimeter, a postcard, a loopback plug. This is something that's commonly done on the CompTIA exam because I'm looking at these and trying to understand which one of these could be used to diagnose system startup problems. They could all be used in some way or another to diagnose a number of problems. At least 3 of these could be used to diagnose system startup problems, possibly 4. So, but the question doesn't ask, of this list of things, which one of these could you use? It specifically says, which of these would be the best troubleshooting tool to diagnose system startup problems? This is one where you also need to be very careful about the question itself. The question is going to give you exactly the information you need to answer this particular question. It's not going to give you more information than you need in this case, and you shouldn't read anything more into this problem. This is one of those that really becomes a little bit more of a challenge. This is one also, whenever I start going through the pieces of this and trying to understand it, and really deciding which is the best, you need to always read through the question again and make sure that you understand what it might be. So go through this also. Again, no answering in the chat room. Go through this piece and you'll be able to go through these pieces and understand exactly what the possible options might be. Which of these would be the best troubleshooting tool to diagnose system startup problems? Go to Socrative.com. Go to the room name Professor Messer. You can go through and answer this one and see if you happen to know what it is. Let's see how we're doing with this answer. A number of you are very quick on this answer. Let's see how we did. I'm going to click the button, and how do we do? Well, we can see 82% of you say it's postcard. And if we went to and said, gosh, it's got to be a postcard on this one, then that is one where a large number of you said, but is that really the correct answer? We have a second place, pretty solid double digits, is Power Supply Tester. And then you've got multimeter at 6%. Hardly anybody said a loopback plug. So the question now becomes, which of these would be really the best answer in this particular case? And I think it's really clear based on the information provided in the question and trying to understand what the best option might be. In this case, would be a postcard. The detailed diagnostics that you get when you start up your computer by putting one of these cards into an expansion slot, turning it on, and it's going to give you what a number of people call a dummy light. It gives you a set of numbers that's going to pop up on the postcard, and being able to see this is one that makes a lot of sense. In fact, a lot of this capabilities of postcards are now being integrated onto motherboards themselves. I just installed a new motherboard here, and the motherboard itself had these dummy lights or these dummy numbers. The dummy is me in this particular case. It gives me status numbers on the motherboard itself and can tell me when there are problems, which was good because on the motherboard I was using, this particular card is one, or the particular numbers it was telling me, the motherboard wouldn't boot. And it was always after coming out of a suspend mode. And it would give me a code on the lights that were on the motherboard. So I was able to do some Googling, reference back to the manufacturer, and found there was a BIOS upgrade that resolved this particular problem. This makes perfect sense if you're trying to troubleshoot a problem, because when you're having a startup problem, you have no idea where this may be coming from. So in this particular question, you weren't giving details. In this particular question, you were asked, which would be the best troubleshooting tool to diagnose system startup problems? It didn't say a power problem. It didn't say a video problem. It didn't say a memory problem. It didn't say a CPU issue. It didn't talk about anything exactly. It just said, where do you go? What do you do? And this is a great way to plug in and get an instant feedback about how far the startup process is getting before you run into an issue. It will give you a number, and you'll know, oh, the issue is with memory, or it's with CPU, or it's with this particular interface. And then you can start working down the list of things to figure that piece out. And it really didn't fool very many of you. 81% of you said a power on self-test card. So if you did answer C, you got it absolutely right. Well done. Let's go to our next question. And remember, no answering in the chat room. Let's see. Here's our question. Which of these would be the best use for viewing real-time memory usage for every running application? Which of these would be the best use for viewing real-time memory usage for every running application? Would it be Event Viewer? Would it be Performance Manager? Would it be Task Manager? Would it be System Configuration? Or would it be SFC? One of these would be the best use. And in fact, this is another one of those questions where you could possibly choose more than one particular answer, except the question asks for the best. And this is one where the answers really should jump out at you. It should be very obvious which one might be the best in this particular case. So if you think you know what the answer might be, go to Socrative.com, go to that Professor Messer room, see if you know what the answer is. While you're doing that, I'm going to sneak a peek, see how you folks are doing with these pieces. You guys are pretty good at these, I think. It's really a challenge on my side to come up with a question that is going to really work your brains. I want half of you to get it right, and I want the other half of you to get it wrong. It seems kind of evil, doesn't it? It's not my plan, but that's kind of how I want it to work out. I feel like you're not going to learn anything unless you get it wrong. That's usually when I learn things. If something's broken and I have to fix it, that's when I really learn something. When I'm trying to get a question right and I get it wrong, that's when I really learn something. So this is the real key here. And I gave you a lot of detail in this question because I want to know viewing real-time memory usage for every running application. So that's one that should really point you down a particular road. And you really have to understand what the tools are available to you and what they might be, which ones you might want to use. Let's see how you answered this one. Well, we're sort of all over the place. I guess there's two that really jump out for most people. Everything else is single digits. At 54%, we have Task Manager, and at 34%, 35%, we have Performance Manager. So that is one where, is it one or the other? I think we could probably choose those. Or could it be Event Viewer System Configuration or SFC? I wonder if that's the case. Well, let's think about how we look at processes on our computer. This is, in fact, as you can see here in this screenshot, this is our Windows Task Manager. And there is a tab in the Task Manager called the Processes tab. I'm looking at this specifically in this view. I think I'm showing you the Processes tab in the Windows 7. I think I've got the Windows 8 one in here as well, where I can see every single process it's running. Every executable, every service, every application I'm running is here on the screen, and I'm able to even customize this view. The default shows you CPU and memory, but you can also add a lot of other statistics and metrics to this. It's extremely useful. I could look at more information about how much disk access, how much drive access is occurring, how much I/O to the storage versus how much I/O to memory. So if you're looking at this and wondering, why is this application slow? What is it doing right now? Is it talking to CPU? Is it talking to storage? Is there slowdowns? Where could I start improving things? That's a great place to do it. These metrics and adding these different columns can really provide you with more detail. For Windows 8, it's a little bit different in the way that it looks, but it's a similar set of information. Here's the Windows 8 version of this. You can kind of see it with my head there. There it is. It's a nice view as well. In fact, I like the Windows 8/Windows 8.1 version /Windows 10 as well, because it takes everything, all of the applications, the processes, the services, and really puts them on a single tab. In Windows 7 and prior to that, there were separate tabs for these. It's kind of nice to have everything rolled up into a single view, because when you're trying to find an app that's using a lot of resources, it would be nice if every possible thing that was running was on one screen for you. And this is a great way to do it through the Task Manager. So if you chose Task Manager, you got this one absolutely right. Let's see how we did with this. Indeed, 55% of you kind of hit exactly the view I wanted from this Task Manager, and being able to do that is exactly what we want to be able to do. Very nice. Those of you that answered that one did get that one absolutely right. I like whenever I'm working through the Task Manager, and these always makes a big difference at finding exactly what application is using the most amount of memory, using the most amount of CPU, using the most amount of accesses to storage. It just makes perfect sense in being able to make that happen. So that's a good job if you did that one. Performance Manager, not so much. Performance Manager can show you memory utilization, CPU utilization. I can show you information back and forth to your storage. A lot of details can be gathered from Performance Manager, but it doesn't break it down for you in the view of every running application. And I specifically requested in this particular question, viewing real-time memory usage for every running application. Your best view and the easiest view and the best one to really see what's going on would indeed be C, Task Manager. Well done with that one. I think that's a great way to see what's going on and breaking things out and seeing them perfectly and being able to that. I think that's really the best option you have in this particular list. There are so many utilities. There are so many functions. There's so many command line options. So much hardware you have to know for the 900 series exams and the 800 series exams. There is a ton of information that you have to know. And of course, all of this information is in my videos. You could go through all of my videos and take your own notes and make a note of all of the different graphics that I have and all of the different charts and all of the different text and go through every single video. And you probably have a nice compilation of summarization of everything you needed to really just before you walk into your exam. Now, these notes are probably not designed to replace a book. They're not designed to replace my videos, but they are a nice last-minute checklist to be able to see really what's going on. Now, I have a good example of this. I have my course notes up here so you can get an idea of what these look like. Here's my course notes. So the 901 course notes on the left, you can see a lot of graphics, all of my text, all of the charts from my videos. On the right is the 902 with all of those Windows pieces, the upgrades and what you can't upgrade and what all of the different commands are and the command line pieces. I try to put everything in here. The 901 course notes, 19 pages. The 902 course notes, 24 pages. These are bigger than any A+ course notes that I've ever made available. And if you're trying to really get a summary of everything and have it all in one place and have it in a PDF file that you could put on all of your devices, could even print it out if you wanted to, this is something that could be really valuable for your study efforts. If you want to know more about this, you can go to professormesser.com/A+CN for A+ course notes. And that might give you an idea of some things that can help you as you're studying for your A+ certification. In the chat room, the folks are saying these notes are the best. Thank you so much. First thing I bought when I joined. I really do appreciate it. And this is also something that helps keep the website going because obviously I have multiple web servers, a database server. I've got a load balancer. There's a reverse proxy. There's all these different pieces and none of them are free. They all cost money to keep going. And your support of the website goes a huge, long way to keeping everything up and running and making sure everything continues to run. So thank you so much for your continued support with that. Again, to learn more about the course notes, you can go to professormesser.com/A+CN. And they're only $10 a piece. So you really can't beat the price either, I think. Let's do another question, shall we? Let's shift gears over into something called a port trigger. In which of these cases would you be most likely to use a port trigger? If you think you know, you can probably see these pop up on the screen and being able to see what's there. Let's see what our possible answers might be. Would it be to create an encrypted tunnel between two endpoints? Would it be to build permanent access to an internal network service? Would it be to build temporary access to an internal network service? Would it be to change the priority of application traffic? Or would it be to build an external network for access to multiple services? This is something for port triggering that you may want to look at. Comes in handy for the port triggering piece. If you happen to know what a port trigger is, maybe you want to answer the question. Stop Googling it. Don't do that. Just go straight to Socrative.com, go to the student login, and go to the Professor Messer room. And you'll also be able to do this. Answer this question. Maybe you know what it is. On a port trigger, this is one when you start getting into, you can see all of these are network related. I guess application traffic priority, that's kind of network related too, but it's really a network question. And this is indeed one that is very specific. You absolutely want to be able to know these pieces for both the 800 series exams and the 900 series exams. So this really comes in handy as well. I think whenever I start working through the network pieces where people start getting into a different area, we can touch our computer, we can look at the motherboard, we can see the CPU, we can look at the memory, but it becomes a little more difficult when we just plug in a wire and there's packets going across the wire. And some of these devices we don't even get to see, these routers that may be somewhere else, these switches that are located in another building. Becomes a little more of a challenge because now we can't really touch it or see it and be able to do this. So maybe you know what a port trigger is. Folks I can tell you're a little slower answering this one. I'm looking at the number of people who have answered so far and I don't know really what a port trigger is. Just take a guess. Just take a stab at it and we'll be able to tell. In fact, I'm going to take a peek while you're doing that and see. You guys are doing pretty good with this one. You think you don't know, but I think you do know with this piece. We'll have to see which one it is and being able to do that. I like them. This is very useful to be able to do this. In fact, port triggers are used quite often for the things that we are doing. In fact, let's see how we did. How'd you do on answering which of these would be most likely to use a port trigger? Well, 52% said build temporary access to an internal network service. I thought more would say build permanent access to an internal network service. Only 8% though did. Tie for second really, or second and third, is change the priority of application traffic and create an encrypted endpoint between encrypted tunnel between two endpoints, and then single digits for the other two. So what would a port trigger be? A port trigger, very similar to a port forward. Now, a port forward is when you might have, let's say, your own web server that you have internal to your environment, and you want to always make sure that people are able to access that web server. Obviously, the web server itself isn't talking out to the rest of the world. People are talking into the web server. So you need permanent access for people to be able to access that web server. Well, when you talk about something that is more temporary, like you wanting to be able to bring up a game server while you're playing the game, but when you aren't playing the game, have your firewall not have that service available to the rest of the world, then you want to use something like a port trigger. This is something that's temporary, something that's only there while you're running a particular application. It's usually where you have an internal client on the internal network and it's communicating outward on a particular port. You've told your firewall or your router, if you ever see anybody talking out on this particular port number, open it up so that other people can talk inbound. And then if you see this communication stop, then I want you to tear it down when the session is complete so that nobody else has access to the inside of my network. One challenge with this, and this is important if you have more than one person in your environment who wants to be able to use this particular application, is only one person can do a port trigger at any time. This is something that's dynamic. It's built as you play it. The first person that starts playing that game or using that application is the one that gets to use the port trigger. The second person coming in, they're not going to be able to use the port trigger. In that particular case, you would set up static port forwards inbound, and you would manually have to turn on and turn off those port forwards as needed. It's one of those challenges with this. So if we look at the possible answers we went through with these, for those of you that said build temporary access to an internal network service, 52% of you got this one absolutely right. It was indeed C. A, creating an encrypted tunnel between two endpoints is a virtual private network or a VPN, so that's not the answer. The answer B, which is build permanent access to an internal network service, would be a port forward, not a port trigger. That didn't fool anybody because only 8% of you chose that one. Changing the priority of application traffic is quality of service, QoS. That's not the correct answer. That's not a port trigger. And building an external network for access to multiple services is when you are creating a DMZ. That's not a port trigger either. DMZs are basically open to the world. So in this case, pretty obvious our best answer here, our only answer here to answer this particular question is indeed C, building temporary access to an internal network service. Well done with that one. Those of you did 52%. And again, for those of you that didn't get this one right, now you know what it is. If you get this on an exam where they're talking about port triggers or they're talking about port forwards, now you understand the difference and you can really work through those, figuring those and making them through. So good point in the chat room. That term trigger kind of leads you down the road of something temporary, doesn't it? So that's exactly an on-off type capability, and indeed that's how the name is created with that port trigger in place. So let's do another question, shall we? I think there's another one here. What is the policy of assigning only the rights necessary to perform a particular job? So now we've shifted over more into the security world, it looks like. If we're assigning rights and permissions, that's the policy of assigning only the rights necessary to perform a particular job might be the principle of least privileges. It might be an access control list. It might be an acceptable use policy. It might be multi-factor authentication, or it might be none of the above. I don't throw a lot of none of the aboves in there, but there's a good example of one. Now we have to choose what is the policy of assigning only the rights necessary to perform a particular job. If you think a lot of you are answering this one right away. Some of you really know this one. If you think you do, go to Socrative.com to the student login and to the Professor Messer room. Again, if you're watching this on the replay, I'm so sorry you can't do that because you're not live. You have to be live to be able to answer the questions. That's a challenge with these. Yeah, this is one of those questions that is kind of an overlay with the Security Plus exam. Definitely is one that you'll see. In fact, you'll see a lot of that on the A Plus exam. You'll see overlays to the Network Plus, overlays to the Security Plus, and this is definitely a Security Plus type question. In fact, this is exactly something you would need to know for the Security Plus exam that has now been brought into the 902 exam. So this one I think is 902 specific for this. And this is one where you will need to know these things. It's one of those small changes to the security piece on the 902 versus the 802. They tried to change a lot of the security, especially to update it for the newer pieces and being able to make that happen. Let's see how we do with this one. A lot of people have already answered this one. So let's see if we can get the answer. Well, 54% of you have said principle of least privilege, but 28% of you have said access control list. And then you've got single digits for everything else. So are we kind of fighting over A and B? Is that the issue? It's kind of not fighting. We've really got twice as many people answering A than B, but still pretty good showing for B in showing that particular piece. Well, let's talk about the rights you would need to be able to perform a particular job is indeed called the principle of least privilege. This is one where you only get exactly the rights you need to perform a particular task. This is something that unfortunately not everyone follows. You'll very commonly see in small environments, everybody has administrator access. Well, challenge, of course, is that anybody in accounting has access to the information in shipping and receiving and the information in sales. And that, of course, is not a very good idea. You should set up the rights and permissions to only allow the accounting department access to the accounting information, only allow shipping and receiving access to shipping and receiving, only allow the sales department to have access to the sales information. That just makes good sense, and it's absolutely good security sense as well with the principle of least privilege. The people who get to decide who has rights to what is the management of the organization. It might make business sense for the accounting department to have access to the sales numbers. You don't get to make that decision as an IT person. You're the person who gets to implement the decision. So there's always a separation there between understanding what the business requirements are and then implementing those from a technical perspective. And that's why it's very useful to build this relationship with the management side so that when they say, I need to make sure the accounting department can see this data, you know exactly the pieces that need to go in place and be able to make that happen. This might be a digital control where you're setting up rights and permissions on a file server. This could also be a physical control as well. You might want to prevent anybody from going into the shipping and receiving department. There may be a badge, and you're only allowed to badge in if you are a member of the access list that is able to get into shipping and receiving. Nobody else should be able to access that particular area because obviously you've got equipment and supplies that are going in and out of there all the time. And that would be the principle of least privilege. And some of you have already know this because 55% of you said, oh yes, I know the principle of least privilege. Indeed, it is one that is very common. It would not be an access control list, although an access control list may be the method that you use to implement the principle of least privilege. But in this case, I was asking about the policy of assigning only the rights necessary to perform a particular job. An access control list is not a policy. An access control list is a way to make it happen. So it's a sort of a functional piece behind the scenes that allows you to employ a part of a principle of least privilege, at least the technical, the digital side of the principle of least privilege. So if you answered A, principle of least privilege, 54% of you got that one absolutely right. Would not be an access control list. We mentioned that's something you would set up to implement the rights and permissions on a server or a router or a firewall or another device in your network. An acceptable use policy is something someone signs that says, I'm not going to do any bad things on the network. Multi-factor authentication is another method you use to authenticate or log into the network or other parts of your network. The multi-factor authentication is something like a dongle, or to have these days on your mobile phone. For instance, when I log into PayPal, PayPal sends me a text message with a number, and I have to type that number in before it will allow me to log in. That's another factor of authentication that you would only be able to log into my PayPal account if you had my phone, because that's the only way you'd be able to receive that text message. So you'd have to know my username, you'd have to know my password, and you'd have to know that text message, which is only good for 30 seconds or 60 seconds or something like that. So when that time frame ends, that number is no longer good. That's a great way to set up authentication. In this case, would not be none of the above because obviously principle of least privilege would be the correct answer here. Well done with that one. Well, there are so many things that you have to know on the A+ exam, and being able to set up all of the different pieces, especially on the 802 or the 902 exam. I know that if you look at it, there are so many new command lines you have to know. You have to be able to configure and set up different pieces of the operating system. You have to be able to understand how to set up disks. You have to understand how to install the operating system itself. You have to understand some of the security features of the operating system. And all of these are useful when you're reading. It's good to know that you need to know these things, but it's a little bit of a challenge if you've never touched the operating system before. You've never worked through some of these more challenging pieces of the operating system. So it may be useful to do some actual labs. You could, of course, get operating systems yourself, set up a lab in your environment, install the operating systems. You'd have to, of course, get licenses for all of these to be able to run them. And then you'd have to have a lab to be able to run through these pieces. Well, instead, you may want to consider something like the GTS Learning Live Labs, where they've already created a set of labs for you. They built a virtual environment with a lot of different options. In fact, if we look at their set of skills, this happens to be the 802. They also have a 902. Introducing Windows 7, system administration, disk management, file management, application management, system management utilities, configuring different operating systems, recovery. These are all the things you run into when you're trying to look through working through these particular pieces. And I simply use my browser. I don't have to do anything else in here to be able to make this work. All I have to do is go to the website. It's using HTML5 to make all of this happen. So I don't have to install any applications. There's no Java to run, nothing special in your browser you have to do. And they've already built the labs. You can see the labs kind of under my head there. If I go to step 1, it even takes you through all the labs. You can even pop it out as a separate window so you can see it better. I'm keeping everything on the screen just so you can get an idea of what these might be. And as you start these up, I just turned on this particular server, and here's the Windows domain controller. And it is a full-blown version of Windows. This is something that is not a simulation. It's not an emulation of Windows. It's really Windows. So you can do anything in here. You don't even have to follow what's in this list of things available. You could start adding files, deleting files, changing things in the operating system just to see what happens. There are also, this case, there's a Windows 7 machine. And in this particular case, you're setting up remote desktop. You're able to use the remote desktop program to connect to a machine. It even tells you exactly what to run and what the passwords are, and you're able to perform remote desktop. Now, if you've never done that before, it's great to get some of that stick time. It's great to be able to use that muscle memory of you type this information in and you see what happens on the screen, all by using these live labs. Now, these live labs themselves, you may be thinking, I'm not sure if this works for me or not. I'm not really sure if this is exactly what I should be using. But one of the things that they provide at GTS Learning is you can try it for free. So if you go to this link, professormesser.com/livelabs, and scroll down to the bottom, there's an option to get a 1 hour, I think, of sample time. So you don't even have to buy anything. You could try it out for an hour and see if this is really something that helps you. You may decide to do this yourself, or after using these live labs, you may decide to let GTS Learning handle all the hard lifting for you. This is one that when I started looking at this and using it, I felt it was so easy to use that I wanted to make sure that you were aware of it as well. And if you follow my link, you get a better price than if you went to the GTS Learning website too. So there's that Professor Messer discount built right into the price as well. And that's something, as I mentioned, they have available for both the 800 series and the 900 series as well. It depends on which exam you're taking. You'll find all of that at professormesser.com/livelabs. I want to thank the folks at GTS Learning for their ongoing support as well. So let's have a look at another question. This is a video daily double, if you will. This is one where I am giving you a picture. This is very common to see on the exam. What uses these connectors? I was going to make this a fill in the blank, but I was worried that you folks would not be using this, or you'd be typing in what the connector is. I want to know what uses these connectors on here. And you should be able to go through these connectors and work through these pieces. What uses these connectors? Is it composite video, S-video, VGA, component video, or KVM? Now, if you see these connectors, and you can see I put a very specific picture up. If you looked on the back of a device and you see these connectors, you should know what connects to this. You should know what that is. And if you think you know, make sure you go to Socrative.com to the Professor Messer room. Some of you in the chat room are saying, why do we have to know Vista? Vista is so out there. Vista is still on the Professor Messer website. I still get a significant number of people still using Windows Vista because I can see statistics of what operating systems people are using based on the log files that are coming into the web server. And there is a huge number of people still using it. It's certainly not as many, of course, as Windows 7 or Windows 8 or Windows 10 or Windows XP. And actually, Windows XP and Windows Vista are almost tied at this point. There are as many people using Windows XP as are using Windows Vista, which is still a significant number for those of you familiar with the Windows XP side of things. So although you don't have to know Windows XP anymore, on the 900 series exam, you absolutely need to know Vista, and you absolutely need to know how to upgrade from Vista, which is probably the more important part of that, I think, is knowing how to upgrade from Windows Vista. That's the one probably you want to spend all your time on, is the upgrading from Windows Vista. I agree. People should not be running it anymore. It's probably something that makes sense to upgrade for them. But it's one of those things that you'll want to run into and look at as well. So let's see how we did with this one. I've got a better picture of these, I think. There it is, a closer picture. Not sure that really helps. It's just a bigger picture on the screen for these. That's one where I think I like going through and working through those pieces. There's always one odd one I stick in there, isn't there? Like, where'd that come from? How did that happen with these pieces? Let's have a look at how we did. Let's click through. And 62% said component video. 26% said composite video. They sound similar. Aren't they the same thing? Maybe not. They must not be. There's also single digits for the others. For S-Video, VGA, and KVM, nobody chose those. So we're kind of stuck between these two that kind of sound the same, and are they the same, and what's up with that? Of course, these connectors themselves are the RCA connectors. These have been around forever. I guess since we've had connectors, it seems, in the 1940s, this RCA connector was created, and it was so good, we still use it. We use it a lot. It's very common to see composite video being used for this. It's usually something, the video side of this is usually one yellow RCA connector is the composite video. The part that whenever you see three different connectors like that together with those colors, then it's probably component video. And you can see it's got the three colors together. Let's see if I can back up one. There we go. We got the green, the blue, and the red. So all three of those together are going to even probably say around them that this is for video, and it'll give you the details of those pieces and being able to work through them. The component video, each one of those is doing a different thing. You've got luminance and sync. That is really for the YPB, the YPB and PR for the blue and the red on those pieces. It's one where I think I've even got a better picture, is a wide angle of this. So this is on the back of, I think, one of these television boxes that has just tons of connectors on the back of it. There's audio in and audio out. You've got some audio up here. You've got the video. It also has different videos on here. And there's the Y, the PB, and the PR right there for the different pieces. So if you see that Y and PB and PR, that's what it's referring to. And those are the connectors there. So it becomes very handy when you're working through these and trying to figure out what are these different pieces? How am I going to use the different connectors? So if you answered component video, the 63% of you got that one absolutely right. It is indeed D, component video. It would not be A, composite video, although it sounds similar. It is a different type of connector on here. It's not S-Video that uses a mini DIN. It's not VGA, that's a 15-pin DB9. And it's not a KVM, which is a keyboard video mouse switching device. That was really just a red herring I threw in there that you'd be able to find. Those 63% of you did really well with that one. Let's go through and do another one, shall we? I think I've got one lined up here. Here we go. How does iOS handle 10 failed login attempts? This may be a little too easy. I thought it's on the exam objectives. It's something you should know about how iOS works. It's one that does come in handy if you're somebody who runs iOS. Your possible answers are: it erases the device. It requires an authentication to iCloud. It must be hard reset. You must physically remove the battery, or none of the above. See? There's none of the above. They always get you. What do you mean none of the above with something like this? What is it? If it's not that one, which one is it? This is one where, as I mentioned, you need to know this. It's kind of been in the news lately, hasn't it? So this one may be a little too easy. You need to know not only how iOS handles failed login attempts, you need to understand how Android handles failed login attempts. You need to understand how Windows Mobile handles failed login attempts. All of them handle them in somewhat different ways. There's some similarities between a few of them, but on your exam, you need to be able to break down what the differences are. So if you think you know the answer, go to Socrative.com and go room name Professor Messer and see if you know what the answer is with these pieces. Sometimes we're just not sure. If you're not somebody who runs iOS, you might not even know how it works, which is why I decided to put this in there, because you may run Android, you may have no idea how iOS does this, and vice versa. I could give you an Android question. If you're an iOS person, you may have no idea how Android handles a failed login attempt. So if you're running a particular type of operating system, you may want to go read about how the other operating systems handle things, because it becomes very useful to be able to do this. So that's one of those where it becomes really useful to know this piece. Let's see how we did with this one. You guys jumped on this one. You seem to know it right away. And again, we're sort of torn, aren't we? We've got 55% said it erases the device, and 24% said it requires an authentication to iCloud. Single digits for hard reset, must physically remove the battery. 12% say you're not fooling me. It's none of the above. That's the answer. So which one is it? iOS devices, a little bit of a challenge. The system lockout's a big problem. Actually not really a big problem, it becomes really useful. If you lose your device or it's outside of your control, this is a great way to be able to really go through and make sure nobody has access to your device. Really becomes very handy to have these features built into the operating systems of the device. In iOS, after 10 attempts, your phone gets erased. So this is a significant security feature. And this is why I mentioned in the news, you probably saw that trying to decode this device, that the FBI went to Apple and said, we need help trying to get around this problem, because we trying to brute force the login, but we get to 10 attempts and then the device gets erased. So we can't brute force. We then have to reload everything on the phone and then try another 10. So it's taking forever to get through this particular device. Now, ultimately, they did find a way to do it. A third party helped out the FBI to find a workaround with this older Apple device. They didn't have one of the brand new, more modern Apple iPhones, which would have made it much more difficult to circumvent this particular feature, but they ultimately did find a way to circumvent this feature. But for those of us that are not super spies, there's no way to circumvent this. You don't have a way to get around these 10 failed attempts. It's going to erase the phone. That's why it's so important that you have a backup of everything on your phone. Make sure that you use your iCloud so it's constantly doing a backup to the iCloud. That way, if somebody even gets the phone or somebody grabs the phone, I'm gonna put in 10 attempts. What a fun joke. Oops, I just deleted everything on your phone. I didn't realize it would do that. I'm really sorry. Here's your phone back. You at least would say, no problem. Click a button, everything comes down from the iCloud. There's different on Android, works a little bit different. You have the option in the Android operating system to either wipe the phone after failed attempts. You also have an option in iOS as well to also lock the device as well. Use your Google login in Android, though, to get into the device, being able to work through those pieces. And in Windows Phone, it works very similar. It locks after a number of failed attempts. It may require a hard reset and a factory reset after a certain number Windows, the folks at Microsoft, not giving a lot of details on this one. So it's one of those you just run into. This is absolutely a 900 series question on the mobile devices and being able to work through those. So it's one that I think you will find system lockout problems a little bit of an important thing to know about. So for those of you that answered A, it erases the phone, you'd be absolutely correct. It does indeed erase the phone. Does not authenticate to iCloud, does not require you to authenticate to iCloud. They don't even bother with that. Just erases the phone. Off it goes. That's a difficult one to circumvent when you work through those pieces. Well, this is one of the questions, one of the big questions. Oh, for those of you, by the way, that did answer A, erases the device, 55% of you absolutely correct. Well done. Very nice with that. Now, as we go through these questions, you may be wondering, what am I supposed to learn then? Where are you getting all of this? Is there certain topics I should really study more than others? Well, there isn't. Fortunately, CompTIA provides everything you need to know for your exam right here in the objectives. You need to go to the objectives and download them. And that's why the continuing education unit special code that you need to know for this particular episode is objectives. You need to go to the Professor Messer website. At the top and the bottom of the website, there's a link for Contact Us. In that Contact Us, put the April 2016 A+ study group, put your name, your email address, and put the special code word of objectives. These objectives will tell you everything you need to know. They will, if you're wondering, is there a topic, is there something I need to know relating to lockouts on a mobile device? It tells you exactly what you need to know for lockouts on a mobile device. If you're trying to figure out the details of how you need to break out certain components and pieces in an operating system, it tells you exactly which operating systems, tells you exactly what parts of the operating systems you should know. If you're trying to figure out, do I need to know how to install Apple's OS X? Do I need to know how to install Linux, or do I just need to know certain commands? Everything is in these exam objectives. Make sure you take advantage of those. You can even find them. I even put a link on my website, professormesser.com/objectives, or just type into the Google machine, CompTIA exam objectives. It will take you right to them. Extremely important. If you don't have them, stop what you're doing with your studies and go get them. It's incredibly important you have them. Well, we've come to the end of another hour. How's that even possible? But we do one of these every month, so there's a chance you can, of course, follow us again. On May the 4th of 2016 is our next A+ study group. If you're watching this in the far distant future, and we've already passed May the 4th of 2016, then, of course, you might want to go to the professormesser.com/calendar and go to that piece as well. It becomes really useful to be able to keep track of what we're doing. Of course, I not only do an A+ study group every month, there's a Network Plus study group next week at this time, and there's a Security Plus study group the following week after that at this time. So we do 1, 2, and 3 to be able to make that happen. So if you look at this month, we're just getting things started. You may want to tune in next week and follow along with the Network Plus study group. Well, that brings us definitely to the end. Can you believe it? Follow what's going on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram by typing in professormesser.com/Twitter/YouTube/Instagram/Google+/LinkedIn/ just type in /something. You'll find me wherever I happen to be with those pieces. Don't forget about my course notes at professormesser.com/A+CN, and thank you for your continued support. Also, don't forget about our friends over at GTS Learning and your 1 hour of live labs that you can get for absolutely free from professormesser.com/live labs. And of course, don't forget about all the other great study groups as well. I could not do this without you. If you're watching this live, you may want to stick around for the second half, the after show, I call it, where I'll open up the phone lines and we can chat about anything. If you're watching this live and you have to leave us, I absolutely understand that as well. I want to thank you for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time on the study group. Thanks. See you then. Well, this does start at Eastern Time. It is indeed an Eastern Time thing. What do you mean you thought it started at Eastern Time? You mean just Eastern in general? every time is Eastern time. It does start at Eastern time. Not sure what that means. What does that mean? With those pieces. I thought it started at Eastern time as well. What's going on here? Let's get the phone lines up and running, shall we? It's the after show, everybody. There's a lot on my screen. Let's go to this and log into that and submit this and click on this thing and host a show and do that thing. Now I have to call into the show because there's nobody here but me. I have to do all the heavy lifting. Let's go to the Skypey. There's Skypey. All right, Skypey. Let's get things going. Where's the? Did it go? Is it working? Call it. Uh-oh. Skypey.
Thank you for
calling
Studios host and calls.
That was loud, Skypey.
Your show number and
I will enter my show number with the thing if I can find it. Is it this? Do I do a pound sign? Uh-oh. That was not right. I didn't like that. How about I...
That was an invalid.
I know. It was invalid.
Please re-enter your show
Welcome to my world.
by the pound.
I know. I am all invalid.
Enter your 6-digit.
Okay. And we might be... Welcome. See? Welcome. Folks already calling in. I haven't even put the number up yet. Let's put the number up, shall we? It's from anywhere, 855-785-RJ45. If you're calling in on Skype, you can Skype in for absolutely free at +1 855-785-7545. Call the number on the screen right there. Call that. And we, of course, already have a caller who snuck in before I even was able to call in myself from the 559 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hello, sir. How are you? My name is Oscar.
Oscar, thanks for calling. What can we do with you, sir?
Sir, so I have actually thank you for the video. It's very informative. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I had a question regarding. I understand the company is doing away with they're revising everything. Now, if I studied up for the old one, the 800, is there much difference that I need to focus on for the 900, or should I just prep up again for the 900?
Have you taken any of the exams yet?
Negative.
Okay, well that actually works for you a little bit, I think. There's not as much as you think different between them. If you go to my website, professormesser.com/FAQ, frequently asked questions, one of the first questions on that screen is, what in the world is the difference between the 901, 902 versus the others? And I went through every single section and I said, if you're taking the 800 series, here's what's different in the 900 series. And I broke it down on the 901 and each individual domain and the 902 and each individual domain. And I've got it written there as text, and I've also got a little video I made on it as well so that you can watch that piece. And at the end, even though you read through this and it seems like, wow, you wrote a lot on this page, it really isn't that much that's different. It's an incremental change. Some of the things are dramatic. For example, there's no Windows XP on the 900 series. There's Windows 8 is now, and 8.1 is on the 900 series. So some minor adjustments. But if you've already been studying for the 800 series, you're in pretty good shape. You didn't miss anything. You're not losing anything by making the shift. And at this point, if you have not taken an exam, we're obviously coming up pretty quick on the retirement date of 801. I'm really highly recommending to everybody that they shift over to the 900 series and really study for that one. Otherwise, you're under the gun and it's coming up quick, and you have now the exam is controlling you rather than the other way around. Does that make sense?
Yes, completely.
And you do not want to be in that position.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. Thank you for that. I really appreciate your explanation.
Thanks for calling, Oscar.
Thank you. Have a good one.
This is one where you got to do that. You just got to make the change. And if you're in the middle of studying, that's okay. There's not that much that's different. You'll be fine. You'll be fine for those pieces. I think it works out pretty well for those, making sure they're all there. Let's go to the next caller. Let's go to the 347 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Are you there, caller? Caller. Talk to me, caller. I hear you now. Are you there? Are you there, caller? 347? That's compelling television right there. That's compelling entertainment. I'll put you back in the queue. You're in the queue. Let's go to the 718 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hi, this is Corey from New York.
Hey, Corey from New York. How are you, sir? What can we do for you?
I'm doing well. Just a quick question. I'm interested in Cisco with a security background.
Okay.
Possibly routing, switching, maybe voice over IP. And I can't. Hello?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, skip A+, just go straight for network, get that out of the way and go straight for Cisco. Am I wasting time going for A+ if I'm interested in the Cisco career or background?
Well, you might be, or you might not be. I guess it really will depend on where you are now and what your path is to finally get to this place that you're trying to get to. And so if you're really working towards Cisco voice over IP, Cisco routing and switching, it might make sense to look at the job offerings that are out there for those kinds of positions. It would be network administrator, network architect, and those types, to see what are those people posting those job entries, what are they looking for? And they will probably say in there, we're looking for these certifications, we're looking for this kind of experience, we're looking for this type of professional knowledge, which will give you an idea on whether what you're trying to do makes sense. If you haven't worked in IT at all, you're not even in the industry, you're not going to start generally in a network position. There are some out there that are entry-level network, and you can start actually in the network department. Those are really unusual. Those are few and far between. There are a few people in our chat room that have mentioned that their very large organization has some positions like that. You don't find those everywhere. They're a tough one. A lot of people start at the help desk, and then they move into networking, and then they move into security from there. So it's this incremental path moving up. So it really depends on where you are and how you are able to get from point A to point B to point C. And I recommend that you do that. Go to Indeed, go to Dice, go to Career Builder, go to Monster. Try to figure out what people are looking for in those positions. Build some relationships. Go to the Cisco users group meeting in your particular area. Meet the people who are using Cisco. That's probably, I got to tell you, that's probably the best thing you can do is start networking, and I mean networking in a human perspective, with the people that already have these jobs, so you're familiar with them. It's probably, I was going to say it's remarkable, but it's probably not as remarkable as you might think, that the people that are doing these jobs it's a small group, it's a small core of folks that move from company to company to company. And after a number of years, you start to know who everybody is. It works that way in networking, it works that way in security, and you probably have a feel for that if you're working in IT now in a particular area. So when you start learning who those people are and you get in front of them every week or every month at the user group meeting, and you can ask them, are you guys hiring? What are you looking for? I'm not in this position right now. What would you recommend I do? These are the people that are doing the interviewing for the jobs you're looking for. They will be your best resource to know what you should be doing. And they'll have an eye out. I heard that Bob over at that organization might have something you would be interested in. You should talk to them, because they're talking with all those people every day. So it's as like anything else in life, it's never one thing. It's always multiple things. And where you start is really going to depend on where you are now and really what you want to get to. It could be that the A+ exam is not something that makes sense for where you're trying to go, or it might make a perfect jumping off point to get the first job so that you can get into the roles you want to be part of. Everybody's path is a little bit different, and there's no single answer that works for everybody. And I guess that makes sense, right?
Right.
That's my advice, is not only to do the things in your career that you need to do, but start making those relationships and building the conversations with the people that are in those jobs. And they're in the user group meetings. They're in the security user group meetings. But Cisco and Microsoft are great user group meetings to go to start meeting these folks and building those relationships. It's an important part of your career building. And if you don't, you will have limitations when it's time for you to be able to make a decision about what to do next.
Thank you so much.
Good luck, Corey.
Thank you. Take it easy, sir.
Bye-bye. Let's see what we've got next. I think I've got that 347 that was all quiet before. Are you back, 347 area code? Are you there? What's your name?
Yeah, my name is Tokumo.
Hey, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, my question is in the line of the other caller.
Okay.
And then I'm purely software. I've been doing software for a very long time, and then I want to change to networking. Just moving into networking now.
Okay. So is this
just looking at the best way, what to do, and how to go about it.
Are you working in an organization now doing software development?
No, I used to be in the software before I moved purely out of the software. I stopped doing software, and then I'm just moving into computing back now, and I want to do the networking, or maybe move into Cisco, whatever.
That's great.
So I just wanted to know where to start from.
It's difficult, and as I mentioned to Corey, there's no single path that everybody goes through to finally get into that networking piece. But I love the networking area, probably because that's kind of the path I took. I started at the help desk. I went into workstation and desktop maintenance. I moved from there into the server side of things and server operating systems. From there, got into networking, and from there, got into security. So as I mentioned, it's these incremental paths that got me where I want to go. And you've already got some of these incremental paths. You've already got the software side of things down cold. You might even want to even get into the details, especially on the networking side. You've got skills that can really help talk to these different devices, because a number of these firewalls and switches and routers have an API. Usually it's REST-based. They need some way to communicate back and forth. These are skills that can really help you when you get into those pieces, and skills that, quite honestly, aren't really taken advantage of in those particular departments. Usually the software people are over there and the networking people are over there. It's a different side of the building. So it's really more along the lines of, if you're working with servers or routers, or servers or workstations or operating systems, you now start working towards the network piece. And it's similar to what I told Corey. Find out if you're in an organization. This is the best way to do it, by the way. If you're already in a big company, go talk to the network guys. What are you doing network-wise? Are there any projects going on? They're always there after hours working on a router upgrade, a switch build out. They're putting racks up in a remote office. These are great opportunities to volunteer with them and say, could I just come along with you and see what you're doing during the setup process? I can help lug the boxes around and unbox things and help get things installed, and just look over your shoulder while you're running the iOS command so I can see what the Cisco switch is doing. They love that. They want to have people who are knowledgeable in what they are doing. So this might be an opportunity to take advantage of that. If you're not in an organization who has that, then you'll probably want to network at some of the Cisco user groups and go to the job postings and find out what people are looking for. Usually with networking, Cisco owns the world. They have the largest install base of devices. And if you know the Cisco side of things, it's very easy to move into other types of technologies. For example, if you know Cisco security, then you already understand how to set up an IPsec tunnel. You already understand the concepts of building out and access control lists. You already understand the idea of configuring and setting up redundancy between these firewalls, and those same technologies work on everybody's firewall. It's the same process. It's just different screens you would go through. So try considering that. Try finding the niche that you have access to the easiest and take advantage of that access. Again, it really comes down to relationship building, either within your own organization or within an organization like a user group, so that you can find out who are the people doing this type of thing and then get the skills you need to get into the roles that are being offered.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And best of luck with that.
Yeah. Thanks.
There's no easy way to do it. Whenever I was, my last position where I worked in a large company, I was doing kind of pre-sales security, pre-sales firewall. And so I would go speak at user group meetings that focused on security, and everybody in the local area was there. It was for somebody trying to get into security, it was a treasure trove of people, because they were all the players, all the decision makers at all the large companies. And they went because they wanted to see what everybody else was doing and be able to bounce ideas off of them. But what a great place to network and be able to see, what are you doing? What are these things you're working on? I want to know what types of things I should be doing along these lines. And I just couldn't imagine. Now, in my position, I was already talking about technology and the things that were happening with the latest devices that were hitting the market. And I was working for a startup. It was a hot startup, and it was new technology, and nobody had ever seen anything like it. And we got great questions going back and forth. And you quickly learned who in the room was really interested in the security piece of things, and you could have really good conversations after the fact. Those are the people you really need to find. And because Cisco is so ubiquitous, they are everywhere, for better or worse. They're a great user group to go to if you're interested in networking, and they'll just let you in the door. I don't know if many user groups, sometimes if you're not a member of the user group, it might cost you something to attend, but it's never anything big. It's $5 or $10. It's so that you pay for the pizza that they order. And there's usually pizza or some type of food that's delivered, so that you can watch a great presentation. Usually bring in players that really know their stuff. You talk about whatever the latest is, and then you can go and talk to the folks that are there and sit down at a table. Oh, who do you work for? What do you do? What a great idea. I'm interested in that particular. I'm doing this today. I want to get into doing more of this. What do you recommend? They love giving advice on what they recommend. How did you get into this position? Should I do the same type of thing? Don't be afraid to ask the question, because they're more than happy to answer that. If Cisco's doing a big event in your area, they do Cisco Live. Sometimes they're on the East Coast, sometimes they're on the West Coast. Sometimes there are regional technology shows. There are in the big cities. There are these usual. You really don't even see them unless you run into them. There's many different kinds run by many different organizations. But you should look for a regional technology show in your area. If you're in Atlanta, if you're in Chicago, if you're in San Diego, if you are in Minneapolis, there's a regional technology show in your particular area where the vendors will set up tables so you can see all the latest technologies, and they have people that are speaking so that you can meet the people who are speaking. Usually it's a vendor that's kind of halfway explaining what their products are doing. It's sort of like a sales presentation, but it's not salesy. It's really, if you lifted up the hood, here's how this engine works. So there's kind of a sales aspect to it, but you're learning about the technology under the surface, and get their card, get their business card, understand more about what they're doing. That's a great way also to do networking. And everybody goes to these because they give away stuff. So all of the local organizations show up. It may not be the players showing up at these regional shows. It's the people doing the hard work who show up at these shows generally. Sometimes there are directors and CIOs that attend, or CSOs on the security side. But those are great things to attend because you start to see the landscape. And by the way, if you look at the landscape, you go in the vendor room and you see all the people behind all of the desks in the vendor room, and you see everybody's working for kind of the manufacturer side of things. And you come back the next year, it's exactly the same people, even though they may not be behind the same desk. So it's the same thing with sales as it is with your networking team, as it is with your security team. There's nothing different along those lines. But it's a great place to meet people. And there's always a place to sit down. They usually have a social at the end of the day where you just hang out and talk. And what a great place to start gathering names and meeting people and getting on LinkedIn and figuring out what they're doing and asking them if they're hiring and what are they hiring for and what should you be doing to get that job. More importantly, ask the question. If you don't, they never know. I will tell you, there have been shows I've gone to where the person at the front of the room, this was with security, so it's a little more niche, where in this particular geography, the person in the front of the room said, how many people have open recs right now? And 75% of the room raised their hand. And they said it's very competitive. At the time, very competitive because you'd have very few people that fit that niche, and they were playing everybody to get the best salary. And so they would interview at 3 places, and all 3 would give offers, and they would just pick the best one for them. And then the other 2 were left out in the cold. So they'd still have a rec open. What a challenge in trying to make these things happen. Let's go back to the phones. The 910 area code. Are you there, caller? Hello, caller. What's
Hello?
your name? Hey, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Alfred.
Hey, Alfred. Thanks for calling.
Oh, no, thank you, sir, for taking my call.
What can we do for you?
Yeah, I have 2 questions, actually. I have a call that's going to be coming in about a job at today, and it's a computer specialist job, and I'm kind of doing a 180 from what I did in the military. So about 2 years now, I've been working to get my CompTIA certifications. I would like to know if you actually had any tips about, coming from something that you were not used to, and then heading in another direction in the IT industry, taking this phone call today. What would be some of the tips that you would have for me to kind of learn the next step?
Yeah, I do actually. I have pivoted a number of times. My pivots have all been within IT, but it has been a pivot each time. I started I really started delivering printer cables for a local computer company. They sold laptops and desktops, and I would deliver these things. And I was supposed to do setup, or I did a little bit of setup, but it was mostly, oh, we forgot to take a printer cable out this morning. Could you run a printer cable over there? Not high tech, got to tell you. And I had a college degree and wondering if I'd made a horrible, horrible decision for myself. But from there, I met people, and I met people at these help desks, and they said, well, we need somebody who has your skills. You want to come work here? And moved into help desk, did that, moved into desktop piece. And from there, moved into server, moved into networking, moved into security. So there was a little bit of a pivot each time. And sometimes those pivots took me from one company that did insurance to another company that did software. And that was a huge difference to me. And at some of those companies, I became the hiring manager. And here's an example of somebody who really impressed me, who was actually moving from a telecommunications company and wanting to work in pre-sales with software. And she came into the interview and started asking me questions about the company, not about necessarily the job or the technology, but she opened up literally a 3-ring binder and had printed out these key pages from the website and said, what is this? Tell me more about this thing here. And we went through what the company did. and who the people were with the company and who was running the show. Tell me about the CEO. Do you have many interactions with the vice president of marketing? Do you have many interactions with the executive vice president of operations? How do you guys handle situations when these types of things happen? It was really impressive that they went through not just the technical side of things, because she was remarkably technical in what she knew, but she also went through the process of understanding the company. And I think that's something we often forget, is that there is actually a company that does something. I worked for an insurance company for 5 years on the help desk. I have no idea what we made. I have no idea what insurance I think there was some life insurance there. I don't know what kinds. It was one of my first jobs in IT, was that help desk job, but I was in the IT department and completely disconnected from the actual business. And it took me a while to realize now that was a big mistake. I didn't really understand what we did as a company. And it's a mistake that's made often. So if you're someone who's getting into a new role, or you're pivoting from one type of job to another, go beyond just the technical side of things. Technical, of course, important. Make sure you have your certifications, the training that you need, all of the different, those pieces, but also make an effort to understand the company. I was in the chat room on my website a few weeks ago, and somebody said, I'm interviewing for a job at a community college, and the job posting says desktop support and AV. And I said, is that antivirus? He goes, no, it's audio visual. And I said, okay, that makes perfect sense, because if you walk into a community college today, or college or university today, every one of the big conference rooms has a system in place to capture that particular day's or that particular class's lecture. And they capture what is being presented on the big screen, and they capture what's being the audio coming from the instructor, and they capture a picture of the instructor, kind of like the videos that I create on my website. But they're captured automatically. It's just a black box in the corner, and they kind of hit a big green start button, and it does all of the heavy work. It puts everything together, and at the end of the class, it posts it online on Blackboard or whatever system they use, so that you can walk out of the class, go home, and then rewatch it if you wanted to. And so they were hiring people to not only support the desktops at the college, but also support this system. So I asked him, what system is that? And he said, I don't know. I said, you need to go figure out what that is. You need to go to the school, go into one of those conference rooms. They're open. You know, it's a big classroom. Don't disturb the class. Walk in when they're not having a class. Go and look at what they're using, and then go to that website, find out everything you can about what that runs. Is it running Windows? Is it running Linux? What capture card is it using? How does it put all this information together? What third-party systems does it interact with? Does it post a Moodle? Does it post a Blackboard? Can it live stream? You need to know all of this before you walk in the door, so that you can ask questions about it. How's this device working for you? Is it integrating with your learning management system? Are you needing somebody that can help understand the details of that? Do you need an expert in this? Because I can be the expert that you need. And he said, I never thought of doing that. And yet that's exactly what they asked for in the job posting. So if you see an opportunity like that in the job posting, take advantage of it. Find whatever it is they're looking for and tell them, I want to be your expert for this particular thing, because I guarantee you, especially on these colleges and universities, that system has got to be a big pain in the butt. That has got to be the worst thing to have to manage. But if you can understand it, I think most of the time it's fear of the unknown. If you can become the expert in it, you could be the person who handles all of those things. You become very valuable on that campus. So see if you can do the same thing. See if you can look at that job, read between the lines, figure out what systems they're using. If they're a big company or they're a big organization, see what packages they're using. What operating systems are they running? Look at their website. See if you can figure out what type of management systems being run on their website. Find out as much as you can about their infrastructure, and be able to ask questions about that during the interview. Anytime you can get the person doing the interview to suddenly get a question they've never gotten before and you can surprise them, you'll get a check mark down on their little list of things, and that can only help you when it comes time to make the decision.
No, I understand. Completely.
That was a very long answer, Alfred. I'm sorry.
No. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Like you said, learning about the company is very important. And when you can turn the tables on the interviewer and, let them know that you've done your homework on the company and you've looked at the things that they're asking for, and you become an asset automatically. And you can tell them that you can contribute as soon as you step your foot into the door.
The lady that came in with the 3-ring binder got the job.
Right. Oh, here's my second question.
Yes.
It's with cloud. It's with the cloud computing. How, with the industry now, do you feel that a lot of people are getting more comfortable and a lot of confidence is being put into cloud computing, and a lot of things are getting resourced and outsourced that way? And how would that affect, jobs in the future? There is
a huge emphasis in cloud computing in the view of whether it's a public cloud or even a private cloud, especially the private clouds. There's a huge emphasis in this today because every single company needs some way to take the resources they don't have and make them available. And usually they're trying to make them available somewhere else. Take, for example, I will bet you that, let's take an example, H&R Block. Here in the United States, it's tax time. Taxes are due on the 15th. I don't think mine are done yet. On April the 15th, every accountant has not slept in a long time. They're going crazy trying to get things done. They're really going through its paces. All of the servers and the storage and all of the processing power at H&R Block is at an all-time high right now. But what happens on the 16th? You go from this huge number down to nothing, practically, or down to a more reasonable amount, certainly. Wouldn't it be great if they had a way to sort of build out capacity during these very busy times and do it in a way where they didn't have to buy the raw materials? They just bought the time and the space. And then when all of the worry was over with the 15th of April, they could stop paying for it. They could kind of turn that part of it off and no longer have to pay for those pieces or maintain it. That is sort of the draw of cloud computing. And you also get into software-defined networking kind of fits into that as well, where you can have these resources kind of waiting out there. And anytime you want to spin up a server, you click a button. Anytime you want to spin up a new firewall, you click a button. You need a database, you click a button, and the database magically appears. You don't need hardware to make that happen. All these things work together, and that's why you'll often see cloud and SDN, or software-based networking, virtualization. All of these things are sort of the same animal in kind of packaged in a different way, and they all work together. And right now, that is the biggest, hottest, I won't even say emerging technology because it's really here. I have installed a large number of virtual firewalls running in these large virtual environments where people could, via software-defined networking, click a button and have a web server, a database server, and a firewall automatically get configured and set up and put at a remote site without any type of user intervention. Maybe it's done when the network gets busy. They didn't have to do anything, and yet the capacity was there, so it created these brand new resources. It's a remarkable set of technologies. What we really haven't done yet is that automation part very well. We're just finding new ways to automate and make all of these things work together. Different systems don't exactly work together in the way that you might expect yet. There's different standards within the software-defined networking field. These clouds that we set up, some are public, some are private. There's security concerns around this. There's networking challenges around it. Every bit of IT has some type of connection into cloud-based networking and being able to integrate with it. And if you're not doing it now, you're going to be doing it very shortly. If you're not doing it now, you're behind. You need to catch up, because somebody's going to show up at your desk and knock on your door and say, hey, we've got this new project going on. You need to click a button right now and get these things running. And if you have no idea what's going on, you're going to be left behind.
Right. I definitely agree. Thank you so much for your time, and I understand now that I might brush up and look into cloud computing, because I think it is the future. Just like you said, the remote access, and then I believe once it becomes that standard, just like the ISO and the OSI stuff that happens, those are going to be ways for everything to be working together, interoperability.
And plenty of jobs and money to be made there as well, Alfred. Good luck with that interview that you have.
All right. Thank you so much.
Take care.
You too.
There is, and what a fun set of technologies to work with as well, and being able to work through those. It is a very exciting set of technologies to be able to install an image of a firewall and then click a few buttons and watch the firewall get built with the networking components, a virtual switch connected to it, connecting to a set of servers that's there. It's brilliant. What a fun way to do networking. And it's once you see it for the first time, you're like, oh, I get it now. Now I see why this is so awesome. I didn't have to call purchasing, get a purchase requisition, find the server that I wanted to get, order the server, order the storage, get it all shipped to me in 3 weeks or a month, install it into a rack somewhere, have another group of people tell me I can't touch it, install the network. No, the network wasn't installed right. Didn't have to do anything. We clicked a button on our screen that said, add this firewall, and it simply added it to the virtual switch. It's remarkable. That's one where I enjoyed working with those pieces. A lot of fun. There were a few things I saw this week that were also pretty remarkable. There was a great article. It's a little bit high level, but I found it to be very insightful. And it's over at labs.spotify.com. This is an article that they posted on how they manage their machines at Spotify. Spotify, of course, is the streaming audio service that I use to play the Hamilton soundtrack over and over and over again. I don't know that they have any other music at Spotify at all. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure they may have some other albums there. But they go through the details of how Spotify started from the very beginning, the architecture they built at the very beginning, and they built it. And the fact they even say they built their own private cloud effectively. Instead of using Amazon or something that was already out there, they were able to build something themselves. And they went through the early stages of this and went through the details. Late 2013, they went through the specifics of how they provision this information. Because you can imagine Spotify, constant growth. You don't lose music. You gain music. So how do you build this out, and how do you build out everybody's playlist, and how do you get people access to that information, and how do you do it quickly, very quickly? And so they go through the whole process, and they show Neep and SID, which are their internal provisioning tools, and they give you an idea of how all of this works. And it's remarkable the detail, the planning that went into this. Of course, you often get into these scenarios of how whenever you, as a technician, you're often thrown into these scenarios where things were built over time and it's a mess. Well, this was built over time, but they didn't do anything without planning it out to begin with, which is refreshing. That's probably why they were successful. You can find this at labs.spotify.com. It's an article from March the 25th of 2016. And it's one that I found to be pretty darn interesting. You can find those pieces there. There were a number of questions you folks sent in over the last month. Let's go through here and make sure we've got all of these pieces available. Let's see if I can fix some of these things. I think I have fixed some of these things. There we go. Let's go through some that should go through this list of stuff. A lot of people asking me about LoJack for a laptop this week. I don't know if that just happened to be a coincidence. A lot of people were asking about LoJack for laptops. It's quite a service. It's something built into the BIOS. Somebody was saying, how can it load in my operating system if I remove the hard drive and I replace it with a blank hard drive and install a new operating system? How does LoJack for laptops get into my operating system? Because it's in the BIOS. And it knows that you've installed a new operating system. And once the operating system starts, it installs itself into the OS. And they said, that's like malware. I'm like, yes, it is exactly like malware, except it's malware that's your malware. It's your personal malware that's being used for your purposes. And it doesn't really go to other machines. It's really just malware for your machine. But it is kind of sneaky how the BIOS is able to get into the OS and install itself, even if somebody was to replace the drive or delete it manually from the operating system. And that's what you want. If somebody steals your laptop, you would like it when you start up the operating system for it to be able to find that laptop. The only way it can do it is if it's running a program from your operating system. It's really great. It's really fancy setup and being able to use that. I like it. And I like that part of it. In fact, it's a technology, of course, that can come in very handy. If your laptop gets stolen, you can delete the drive yourself. You can have it pop up a message. You can remove individual files. You can do a lot of things with this because you have complete access to that drive because it's in the BIOS, which is a little different. Other people are talking about Prey and some other products that are out there. Folks in the chat room are mentioning that. But of course, they're not built into the BIOS. If you remove the drive and you replace it, it's gone. It's just something you install in the operating system. Has to be part of the BIOS to be able to make that happen. And that's why I found that a lot of questions were coming in this week, and somebody even left one of the questions in the registration. And is the LoJack theft mode require password? Is it independent of the BIOS password? And that's a little deep for the A+ exam, but the LoJack information is completely separate from the supervisor password or the user password that you would commonly find in the BIOS, because it needs to be. You need to have a different level of security for LoJack. It's its own animal off to the side, but it's one that has its own authentication method as well. It integrates with the website, so you can access a website and be able to access those things. Or as they say in the chat room, which makes sense, just ask the NSA for a copy of your data. They've got it somewhere, right? They got it on a server. Which makes perfect sense to me. Someone from a study perspective, who asked this? Christian asks, could I set up a VM environment myself and use that to create multiple operating systems to test myself on? And you absolutely could if you wanted to. You'd have to, of course, know what you wanted to do once you had those operating systems installed. And if you go to my videos on installing Microsoft Windows, Vista, installing Windows 7, installing Windows 8, and you go through the process of installing all of those, I take you through the process. If you have the software already, you have the operating system installation media, how you would install that as a virtual machine. Because I'm doing this on a Mac, but I'm installing Windows Vista. I'm installing Windows 7. I'm installing Windows 8 so that you can see how you might want to do that. And this is great because you can then do anything you want in that virtual world, and it's not going to affect your computer when that happens. It becomes very handy if you want to mess around with it and see if you can break something. See if that comes through. It's another good way to go through that piece and work through it. There's also, if I go through these, let me go through this piece. There's, if you go to modern.ie, modern as in the modern world, modern.ie, it will redirect you to a developer website from Microsoft, developer.microsoft.com. And developer.microsoft.com, across the top of the Microsoft Edge section, is a download for tools, and there's a list of virtual machines where they've already created virtual machines for all of these popular operating systems. I've noticed, however, they've recently removed Windows Vista. Look at that. Let's say that I'm on Windows machine. So right now they only have available Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10 to choose from. They used to provide Windows Vista, so now it's up to you to find Windows Vista and work through those pieces. That's kind of a shame, isn't it? But Windows 7 and 8.1 are at least there. And those operating systems are fully licensed and given to you from Microsoft to use for non-production purposes. So that becomes very useful to be able to do that. I think that's one that comes, if you're studying for your A+ exam, these are two operating systems you will get tested on extensively, and you can simply download them and load them into your virtual machine manager, like which ones do they use here for Windows? Let's choose one. Let's use this one: VirtualBox, Vagrant, Hyper-V, VPC, or VMware. So really anything that's available from a virtual machine perspective, you can absolutely do that on those pieces. So very useful to have those technologies available. The current A+, the 900 series A+, does not include Windows 10. So that's good. There is Linux and OS 10 command lines that are listed there, however. So there is some of that you'll want to know as well, working through those. So really up at this point, that was my contact. That was my link for Windows Vista. So you could at least get your hands on Windows Vista. It's kind of a shame that's not there anymore. Oh, well. But they are free. They're pre-built. There's nothing you need to do. It's just available for you to be able to use. You can't beat that, right? It's one very good to be able to work through. Well, at this point, our calls are no longer coming in. I've gotten through all of the questions for today. So it looks like we've come to the end of another study group, a very successful study group, I think. I'm already starting to see your CEU requests come in. I'll be getting answers to those CEU requests to you very shortly so that you can get access to those and be able to work through them. And this is also, as I will remind you, we do one of these once a month. I do a A+ study group once a month. Network Plus study group is next week at this time. Security Plus study group is the week after that. So we've got 3 in a row, and then we'll do every month another one of these A+ study groups. So if you're studying for your A+ certification, make sure you come back next month and do this. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I could not do this without you. Thanks for your phone calls. Thanks for the messages in the chat room and all the things that you send in. And I'll see you next month on the study group. Thanks, everyone.